Hello, everybody.
Welcome back to the Other Side Lifestyle podcast. Today we have a guest who will explain why he's afraid of the Amazon driver and why he's always packing heat when somebody comes near the door. Aram, we're not going to make him repeat the story of him being afraid of homeless people molesting him, so we'll just bypass right through there. And you'll learn why life's a lot easier when you have goals like mine that don't involve achieving any physical feats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You guys are in for a great episode today.
I feel like this is going to be real serious.
That's it. Rob, how about you why can't I think of the word? I was about to say invite. I wasn't going to say invite. Introduce. It's another I word. Introduce our guest.
What can I say about Paul that hasn't already been said about Afghanistan?
Oh, wow. I'm the bomb.
I was going to say bombed out and depleted, but same thing. But, similar. Paul and I met at the Swiss conference in Columbus, Ohio. Paul was on stage. I was so close to Paul that I can actually see through his pants, his crotch bulge, because I was sitting front row and he was sitting in a chair with his legs very conveniently wide open. And that's kind of where I started to understand what Paul knows about the world of nutrition and fitness, as well as why he's such a good coach. But I'll let him take the reins on talking about himself a little bit more than I can.
So, my name is Paul. I am the owner of Master Athletic Performance with my wife, Olivia. We have 5 other coaches who work with us. That's where we deliver coaching for training and nutrition to any client who views training and nutrition as a vehicle for personal development. So our core tenet is raising the bar for yourself. Then I also own Coaches Corner University, where I provide mentorship and education for other coaches. It's centered around my one-on-one Coaches Corner U PhD program, which is a mentorship program where I coach other coaches on how to set up their businesses and scale. And then I also have an education platform called the Education Collective with over 200 hours of continuing education resources, a community, and actually working on a big rebrand relaunch for that right now as well. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And for the record, not afraid of the Amazon driver. I just really enjoy having a gun on my waist now that I'm in the United States of America.
And you are from Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. Were you not allowed? Is Canada completely no firearms whatsoever?
Canada, handguns are illegal. Completely illegal. You can have them if you have a special restricted license, but the only time you can use them is at the range. And it's so strict to the point where, like, if you get pulled over going to the range and the police officer realizes that you didn't take the shortest route by distance to the range, you can go to jail.
Wow, so you can't make any pit stops.
You can't make any pits. No. You can't make any pit stops. There's rules on like how to carry it in your vehicle, everything.
It's like that. Based on distance from the range?
Yeah. So like if say there's 3 routes that you can get to the range, and the shortest by distance, there's an accident and it'll take you 30 minutes longer. You have to take the shortest route by distance in order to get there to be legally compliant. Rifles you can have for hunting, but again, you need a license you need the hunting license, and then you also need the firearms license. And Canada also doesn't have a castle doctrine or a stand your ground law. So even if you did have firearms in your home and someone came in threatening lethal force against you, you are not permitted to use your firearm in self-defense.
Jesus.
I like I don't know how it is in California. I don't know how many the different states are, but in Jersey, you need a license for every handgun. Once you get that license for the handgun, if I got one license for one handgun, fine. Then I can just buy, after that, any other kind of gun, as many as I want. I can go buy shotguns. I can buy AK. You could buy anything you want. You don't need a license for it, just for the handgun.
I think that's California also. I think as long as you have a pistol permit, you can have any long gun after that. But I think in Connecticut, when I used to live there, it was a 6-month process to get a pistol permit because it had to be concealed carry. And then you also had to get a hunting license if you wanted a long gun on top of that. But I've been thinking about it ever since, shit's getting weird in our fucking country, and why not have something?
Yeah. And I
I
mean,
got one.
I do have to say, like, I believe in the Second Amendment. I think it's amazing. I think we should have the right to defend ourselves. I'm also not American. So there's a lot of legality around how I'm allowed to purchase firearms. I have to have a hunting license. I also have to fill out a background check for every firearm that I purchase. And then if I do want to conceal carry, depending on what state, I can't even get the permit. So the state that I live in, I'm not allowed to get a permit, but I can get a permit, a non-resident permit from another state and apply it here. So there's a whole bunch of workarounds. But ultimately, the reason I got into firearms was I was looking for a hobby that didn't have anything to do with fitness. I've never had a hobby ever since I started training. Training was my hobby. Competing in powerlifting was my hobby. Competing in bodybuilding was my hobby. And I did, powerlifting at the world-class level for a number of years. And I needed a cognitive outlet, something that I could suck at and then progress. So something that had a runway of progression. And I hadn't found anything in years. And I committed myself. My dad is very into firearms. My dad, was in the Civil War in Lebanon, immigrated to Canada, big hunter. So we grew up with firearms, but never really got into the competition aspect. So that's my goal right now, is to get into competition shooting.
There's some cool games that they have, like the tactical games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
They're
was
all.
just watching some videos on that.
It's very. I mean, it's cool as hell. I used to actually train a woman who trained tactical games athletes, and it's the amount of skill work you have to have on top of just the physical fitness aspect of it is very interesting to me. I think that is such a great thing to do and such a great intention behind why you do it, as opposed to like what a lot of people do, which is they just collect these fucking things for no reason.
Yeah.
Like you're actually going to go out and do something. You're going to try to get better at your skill set. You're going to try to refine the skill set. It's like you said, it's a cognitive function thing. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go blow shit up for no reason. It's I'm doing this for a very specific purpose. And I think a lot of people, as they age, they lose interest in a lot of stuff, and they get they get bored, and then their cognitive decline is very evident, and it's almost inevitable at that point. So, good way to kind of talk to you about how you help your clients through more moderate seasons of their life when they start to kind of lose focus, or maybe they've already achieved some level of goal and now they're just kind of floundering. How do you keep people excited? I hate the word motivated, but let's use the word motivated, inspired, to be able to always stay in the game.
Well, I think the first thing is, so if we're going to assume that they've achieved a goal in the first place, there had to be some sort of habit formation that allowed them to reach that goal. So the way that I kind of talk about training and nutrition is it just becomes like software that's running in the background. So like you think when you first start tracking your training, tracking your nutrition, it's an active process. It's something that you have to think about. It's something you have to plan into your day. Okay, I made my food. Now I have to track it in the app before I eat it, all this sort of stuff. Eventually it just becomes, nope, this is just what I do. It's like brushing my teeth. I don't have to think about brushing my teeth in the morning. I just wake up and I brush my teeth in the morning. I brush my teeth before bed and I go to bed. That in and of itself creates a structure around their day. So it's ingrained within them that they have these specific anchors to their well-being. And those anchors are the behaviors and strategies that they've implemented to achieve that goal. So those are already in place. My strategy with the majority of my clients is, because they view their training and nutrition as a vehicle for personal development, and it's a theme that we continue to revisit, they're never satisfied. So whether they had a goal that they came in, they're like, I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, they lose that 10 pounds. They're like, cool, now I want to get jacked. Cool, I'm jacked now. Now I want to be super strong. Or I want to look like this. And they'll send me a picture of a celebrity and we'll work towards that. But all of these things are just habit stacking, increasing, decreasing complexity. It's an opportunity for me to educate them on the reasons why we're doing the things that we're doing. The clients that I get are very cognitively engaged in the process, and they want to learn the hows and the whys. So it becomes a really interesting thing for me where none of my clients are the same. If you look demographically, I have single moms, I have Air Force Special Forces, I have professional athletes, I have world record holding powerlifters, but all of them see what we're doing as a means of personal development. So that goal setting never stops. And so it's just up to me to keep, I like to view my role as kind of almost like a telescoping lens, where when we're focused on a singular goal, we zoom in on the minutia. When it's time to pull back and recalibrate, we zoom out and focus on the big picture. Whether that has to do with vacations, holidays, things of that nature, that zoom in, zoom out aspect that I play really helps them just relax, enjoy the process, and keep it as software running in the background. And part of the way that I do that is by practicing what I preach myself. Like, I'm competing in a bodybuilding show. I'm just under 6 weeks out right now. I wake up, I do my cardio, I go train, I eat my food, I work, I do the same things I normally do. It's just software running in the background. I might be a little bit more fatigued. I look sick with my shirt off, but like, it's the same shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the hard part, I think, is folks equate nutritional and fitness changes in their life as like this singular occurrence. It's like, I'm just going to do this one time. Well, no, like you're going to have to do this forever, because hopefully the skill set that you learned by getting that achievement is actually a skill set and a habit that you've created now for the rest of your life. And if you didn't, that's why 99% of Americans rebound and regain weight. It's because they never actually built the habit. They were just handed a structure externally, like the keto diet or like the paleo diet or like fasting. They followed it, they got an outcome, and then they stopped. And
it's a means to an end, instead of a learning or education process. It's a means to an end. I just got to do this until this, and then I don't have to do it anymore.
That's a fantastic lens to look at it through, and it's one that I applied when I was so my background is in collegiate strength and conditioning. That's how I came up in the industry. Training for an athlete is a means to an end. So training is a tool. The competition itself or the sport is the end. So the only goal of our training is to make their performance better. When you transition into strength sports, like I did with powerlifting, it is both the means and the ends, because I'm training to get better at training.
Right.
That puts an enormous amount of pressure on the process. So there's a whole different cognitive skill set that you need to adopt. But then once you zoom out into whether you're a bodybuilder or a lifestyle athlete, I call all of our clients are lifestyle athletes because their performance is outside of the weight room. So as that lifestyle athlete, training is a means to an end. It's not the means in and of itself. So it takes a lot less of the focus away from the minutia and places it more on how is this translating outside the gym and outside the kitchen. And once they start realizing that, hey, when I eat better, I feel better, I'm a better parent, I'm a better partner, that transferability of those lessons and those strategies makes the habit stick a lot better.
I like that approach. And then just saying, your tagline of this is an aspect of personal development, because it takes some of the pressure off to get to an end result at this date and time. Mm-hmm. And it reminds the person, this is why I'm doing it. It's not just to lose weight. It's to develop myself as a human and treat myself better. So I love that approach and just those words. I would imagine why you have the clients that you have that you're describing.
Yeah, it's manufactured hardship. When we look at any sort of adaptation, we require a stressor. So if the adaptation is personal development, we have to stress your personality. Like, we have to stress your personal coping strategies, your resilience. And we do that by implementing diets that make you hungry, because when you're hungry, you're going to be emotional. You're going to be more susceptible to stress. But if I can teach you to manage your stress and manage your emotions when you're hungry, well, when you're not hungry anymore, all of a sudden you're just a more even keel, stoic individual. So like those types of lessons as we go, the check-in process is very much a discussion of, this is what you're feeling, this is why we're doing it, this is the outcomes that we're looking for in terms of personal development, these are the outcomes we're looking for in terms of physical capacity, body recomposition, things like that. So it's really showing them the connection between what we're doing in training and nutrition and how that translates.
You've been in this business for a very long time, and arguably probably almost longer than me, even though I think I'm older than you are. How old are you?
30. I'll be 38.
Oh, all right. I got you by a little bit, but I've seen changes in human behavior over the last 15 years that I think have made compliance to a plan much more difficult.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, I can't quite put a finger on it, and I don't want to be one of these people that plays the blame game, but it's not hard as somebody who's participating in this industry to see that there's a pretty high level of stress irresilience and a lot less emotional regulation now than there ever has been. Is that something that you're also seeing as well? And if so, what can you attribute that to?
It's absolutely something that I see. I think it's a multifactorial thing, right? You look at even the easy one is to blame social media. I don't like blaming social media. I think social media is amazing. It's allowed you and I to connect. It's allowed, now me and Jimmy to connect. It's a phenomenal tool when viewed that way, but it puts things with like immediate gratification, whether it be like, oh, what song is this? Oh, I can find out in a second. Versus if I wanted to order a supplement, I had to go to the supplement store, pick it out, get educated by that person. Now I can just go on Amazon and order whatever the fuck I want. So I think a lot of it is immediate gratification. I think a lot of it is over-promising by the industry and the availability of information. I think a lot of it is an inability to accept personal accountability. That's one that I see a lot. And I don't know if you want to get into this, but I think I don't know what the word would be, but blaming mental health or like offloading it to a diagnosis,
Pathologizing things that
pathologizing mental health concerns rather than I'm just in a challenging season of life.
right.
Yeah, there's a woman, JK sent me her page, and she had. I just want to shout out what her name is.
Is she the black lady? That's
Raquel Hopkins.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome.
Raquel, the capacity expert, and she specifically talks about this topic in like her pinned post about how we're just using this as an excuse, and we've developed less resilience as a people because of all of this focus on mental health, but then no action following up how to deal with it and how to cope and how to be resilient. So it's exactly, and she just, is so eloquent with how she's saying it, but still straightforward. And it's just on point with exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. I think all of that put together just makes an individual not only less resilient, but less anti-fragile. Right. I love the concept of anti-fragility rather than resilience, right? Resilience is resistance to change. Whereas anti-fragile is going to be increasing robustness in the face of stress. So instead of stress weakening us, it actually makes us stronger.
Yeah.
And so if I was going to base my philosophy on anything, it's that. It's like I teach people how to look at problems and fortify themselves with solutions rather than being the victim of circumstance. Yeah, I've made a few posts in the past. More recently, I said, you are not depressed, you are not anxious. Right? Depression and anxiety are states. States change. You have the ability to facilitate change, so you can change your state. And a lot of these posts get tons of pushback. I made one in the past about you're not a victim, and I'll get things about like, yeah, I'm not a victim, even though I was sexually assaulted by my uncle or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's a terrible thing. And I'm not discounting the fact that is traumatic. But you have a choice to stay in that trauma and allow that to define you. Or you can use that trauma to fortify yourself, develop resilience and coping strategies so that you can move forward and live a meaningful life. If we continue to stay in these states that are not serving us, my God, like I just found out recently that my grandfather has a mass on his lung. He's 88 years old. We don't know what it is. It could be nothing. It could be cancer. It could be the end of his life. We don't know. But this man never stopped being solutions oriented. He's tougher than a fucking $3 steak. The guy had polio when he was a kid, still plays 3-4 rounds of golf a week at 89 years old. He doesn't give a shit what his problems are. He's living his life and making every minute meaningful. That's the example that we as fitness professionals in this space should be setting for our clients. And
yeah, it's like the whole protecting your peace thing.
Yeah.
Might have a very unique situation where that might apply,
Yeah.
but to be doing that all the time in the sake of mental health, you don't realize how it is making you so fragile and not being able to handle anything, and then potentially missing out on really good eye-opening conversations, or potentially missing out on great relationships because
Absolutely.
anything that's uncomfortable about the conversation or the topics being, nope, I can't talk about this. I'm protecting my peace. And it sounds very like brave and noble of you, but it's really the opposite.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree
Yeah,
more.
Paul, I want to go into obviously your hardship. You just had arguably one of the toughest injuries that somebody can have.
Yeah.
Within the last year, right?
So July 11th of 2024.
Oh, this victim story he's going to tell. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
Guys, it was pretty sad. July 11th of last year, I was competing in a powerlifting meet. My first meet in 2.5, 3 years, because I took some time off to rehab some injuries. I did a bodybuilding show and then got healthy enough. And at the time I decided to dip my toe back in, the Canadian all-time world record squat, it was only 7 kilos better than my best squat. So I was like, I'm going to set the Canadian record, and then I'm going to retire from powerlifting. That was my goal. And because of the bodybuilding training, I was like 20 pounds heavier, leaner, bigger, stronger, all those things. I was like, this is going to be fucking easy. Decided to do a local meet to kind of tune up and get back on the platform. First 2 attempts were a little bit shaky, as I anticipated them being. But on that third attempt squat with 750 pounds, I actually lost my balance and shifted my weight.
Walking back or
no,
in the squat?
Like performing the squat. Yeah, I walked the squat back. Everything was fine. I initiated the squat. And for those unfamiliar, when you have that much weight on the bar, there is oscillation to the bar. It will flex up and down. Even the most stiff competition bar at 750 will oscillate. And I wasn't really ready for that oscillation. And in the bottom, when I went to reverse the weight, I shifted too far back onto my heels. And as soon as I tried to push out of that bad position, both my patellar tendons popped. Both my quad tendons popped. And I tore both my quads. The actual injury was avulsion fractures to my patella. So the tops of my patellas fractured off and took my quads with it.
Jesus.
I had surgery the next day. Very fortunate for me that I ended up getting hurt right beside an orthopedic trauma center. Because in Canada, you can't choose your surgeon. So whoever's there is going to do your surgery. Surgery went great. I spent the next 6 weeks in a wheelchair. But from the moment I got hurt, from the moment I got back from the hospital and was in my own space, it was all about rehab. So I was supposed to spend 6 weeks in a wheelchair. I actually only spent 5 weeks in a wheelchair. I was supposed to spend 4 weeks in a walker. I spent 4 hours in a walker. It was supposed to be 3 months before I could load within 90 degrees of flexion. I squatted 135 at 12 weeks post-surgery. And then now at a year post-surgery, my quads are actually bigger than they were before the surgery. And I'm preparing in about 5.5 weeks to compete in a bodybuilding show as like a comeback.
That's wild, man. I mean, especially with how I can see like a single-sided injury being shitty, but it's nowhere near as bad as a bilateral injury like that literally takes away your, because I mean, we've all heard this story, seen this client where they break a toe and all of a sudden now even upper body training isn't getting done, let alone steps or walking or elliptical.
That's
just
my philosophy.
It drives me absolutely crazy now I get that there's a lot of people that don't have good orthopedic advice and they don't have good physical therapy advice and they're just not being led properly. Mm-hmm. But even under the worst possible circumstances, as a hopefully curious individual who wants to get out of this problem faster, would you not try to exhaust every resource available to you? And it sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, for sure. And just to put it into perspective, so I was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks, which means, and when I was in the wheelchair, my knees were locked in extension. So I can't bend my knees when I'm not in the bed. Part of the rehab was strategic graded exposure to flexion over a course of the 6 weeks. So by the time I was out of the wheelchair, I already had about 90 degrees of flexion, which
Wow.
was about 30 degrees more than I should have had.
I mean, that's better than people that tear ACLs.
Yeah, for sure. So, and when we talk about like being in a wheelchair, when I was in the hospital, I was in so much pain that I couldn't have my feet below my hips because that was too much hip extension and too much pulling on my quad.
Oh God.
So in order to take a shit, I had to pivot, like do a weighted dip and pivot myself off of the bed into a commode and shit with my legs fully extended while sitting on the commode.
So doing like an L sit,
basically like an L sit with my feet on the bed. And because the commode was so narrow and I was 255 pounds at the time, I couldn't wipe my own ass. So the nurses had to wipe my ass. And there was an instance where the nurses were held up in an emergency and I had to get my wife to wipe my ass. So you want to talk about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Those 6 weeks, like I did everything with regards to rehab I possibly could. I did the calculation, and during those 6 weeks, 8 hours a day was spent doing some form of rehab, whether it was passively sitting in a PEMF machine, whether it was using a muscle stim device, whether it was icing or heat or active recovery, blood flow restriction. 8 hours a day spent doing rehab. I still worked. I still served my clients. I still scaled my business. I cried almost every single day for the first month. But I still did what the fuck I was supposed to do because I was not willing to stay there. And my rationale here was my wife was taking care of me 24 hours a day. What a piece of shit would I be if I was just wallowing in my own self-pity while she took care of me? That is such a disgrace to the effort that she's putting in to take care of me. So that was a huge motivation. Then as soon as I got out of the wheelchair, I remember this vividly. The first morning I was able to get out of the wheelchair and use the walker on my own. I didn't use the walker, but anyway. I made myself breakfast before she woke up. And she woke up and walked into the kitchen around the corner and saw me standing making my breakfast. And I saw her shoulders just drop like 3 inches. And I was like, I did good. That was like, for me, I was like, okay, I did good. And then from there, like I did my own rehab. I had a physical therapist that was doing some soft tissue work on me and kind of monitoring the process. But I did my own rehab. I did my own corrective exercise. I did my own training. I had a lot of input from friends like Dr. Danny Lamartina, Mike T. Nelson, Dylan Seeley, like all these people in my corner. Dr. Ken Kanakin was a huge help to me. Matt Nickel was a huge help to me. Like all these people I've met through our connections. And I felt like I owed it to them to put in my best effort.
Yeah.
And I also owed it to myself, you know, like shit.
Yeah.
Sucks,
And I think people will look at your story or even like my story with my Achilles and people will be like, well, you guys are trainers and you have the resources and we don't. It's like, yeah, that's certainly a massive advantage. Don't get me wrong.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like having the Mike T. Nelsons in your corner and Danny and everybody else, like they're great resources that you can just shoot a text message to and say, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. What is the best way to put a protocol together? But I think that even just the basics, I mean, I remember going to physical therapy 3 days a week and I would never see the same person twice. And I would even ask some of the techs, I'm like, are these people booking appointments consistently? They're like, no, these people never show up. And these people have been in the program for 6 to 8 months and they've gotten no range of motion back. They've gotten no strength back and they barely ever come. Mm-hmm. And I just look at that and I'm like, your insurance is fucking paying for it. A, so you have a $50 copay. So it's costing you $50 to just show up and improve yourself. It's guided the entire time. This physical therapy clinic did a pretty good job of educating us while we were on the table, while they were doing soft tissue on us, if they had spent enough time, if they had enough time to do it. And anytime I asked questions, they were very, very good about responding. So it's like you have this amazing resource sitting in front of you. And you're not even taking advantage of it. And that's going to be the same person who 6 months from now is going to be bitching that they're not further along. So what is the difference between somebody like that versus somebody like you?
The hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. It's one of my favorite quotes. The hardest thing you've ever done becomes an anchor for all of the challenges that you face later in life. Physically, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Emotionally, I can say that was not the hardest thing I've ever done.
Really?
No. There have been challenges in my life that I've overcome that have been massively more impactful than that from an emotional standpoint. Life transitions that challenged me in ways that shaped the person that I am today. So from a robustness of emotional stability, that was fine. Like I was okay to feel my feelings. I also go to therapy all the time. Like I've been since 2019. I've been going to therapy. At least it was started at twice a week, and then now it's once a month, and I just kind of keep it on maintenance. But like all the tools that I've developed over that time allowed me to cope with the emotional side of things. So for me, knowing that it wasn't the hardest thing I'd ever done did make it a little bit easier. I also had full confidence that I could do the work. And I'm the type of person that doesn't make excuses for myself in terms of, Jimmy, you mentioned protecting your peace. Like, oh, I can't talk about that right now. Yes, you fucking can. And yes, you're going to. So when I was, doing rehab 8 hours a day in a bed, like my average step count for the month of July was 40.
It's 2 straight legs.
It's 2 straight legs. So when you look at like, okay, yeah, I'm crying every single day, but I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do. So that level of fuck it is definitely missing. But you asked like, what's the difference between somebody like me and someone who just wallows in their own self-pity? I think is purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Like I have a roster full of clients and a mentorship full of coaches who look up to me. I have people in my network who look up to me. I have niece and nephew who look up to me. I have family members who look up to me. I hold a tremendous amount of responsibility to be the ideal that I purport to be. And so this was just another opportunity for me to do that. The other thing is I'm very, very clear on who I am. I know exactly who I am. And a big part of my identity is being someone who does hard things willingly. So this was just I was asked recently, like what the biggest lesson that I learned through my rehab was. And it wasn't necessarily a lesson. It was just affirmation that I am who I say I am.
Interesting.
And it's just an opportunity for me to showcase who I am. A question I ask a lot of all of the coaches that I work with and a lot of the clients is, who are you? But you can't use your job, your family, your faith, or your hobbies in that description. So who are you outside of the things that you do? I'm someone who perpetually wants to learn. I'm someone who actively seeks to do hard things. I'm someone who loves fully. Like all of these things are aspects of my identity that have nothing to do with the things that I engage in, right? They're just me. So that was all in the front of my mind. And the other thing is, I think we do a very bad job of controlling our environment in most cases. So whether that's your physical environment or whether that's your cognitive environment, I made sure that every day I was journaling, I was reading, I was taking in educational podcasts, personal development podcasts. I didn't talk to people who drain my energy. I didn't take in any sort of we'll call it negative content. And I really made it an opportunity to develop myself as a person. So I saw beyond the rehab, and I saw the lessons that the rehab could teach me. And that level of purpose was a huge driver for me as well.
It seems like just an unwavering belief in yourself and your ability to recover quicker. I think a lot of people that are maybe going down a weight loss journey, they just don't really believe it. Like they're having, like they talk themselves out of it. Like, what's the point? What's the point? They lose that faith in themselves or the process or the ability. And the other thing I think that you said, which was super important, is the curiosity and wanting to learn. Where some people, we hear it all the time, like, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But that curiosity and wanting to learn is what's going to make this be something that might be, more or increase your chance of it being long lasting. Or just tell me what to do. Now I'm done being told what to do.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better.
I agree.
So let's. I wanted to switch gears a little bit because the last couple of podcasts we've done, I think we've done a good job of diving into the mental health side of things, and it's certainly not a horse that we can beat to death enough because it's always going to be the anchor behind why we do anything. But I do want to touch on some of the science-based principles that I know you're very good at, and just dive into some of the simplicities that you've seen over the course of your career on how people can actually sustainably improve body composition. So from a nutritional standpoint, what do you think average people are missing and where should they start?
Number one, start where you are. That's what I think a lot of people miss is they try to make these massive changes right off the bat and they just can't sustain them. I think a big piece of that is developing self-efficacy. So we know based on the research that the adherence to any behavior is going to be based largely on your self-efficacy, which is your confidence in your competence to achieve a goal. So if you start with some massive goal that you're not necessarily confident you can achieve, you're probably going to fail. So rather than starting off with something big, you start off with something small and you build momentum based on keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So if you say this week, I'm going to do 3 workouts, and then you do those 3 workouts and you kept that promise to yourself, now you become more confident in your ability to follow that plan. So building a runway of progression that builds on these micro wins, because we know through investments that micro wins compound over time. So that's number one. Number two is I think people spend way too much time in deficits or surpluses. I think that is probably the biggest fallacy that is perpetuated in the online fitness community is that if you want to diet, you should be in a deficit. And if you want to gain weight, you need to be in a surplus. And thermodynamically, that is correct, right? We need additional calories to gain tissue and we need less calories to lose tissue. But what that equation misses is exercise intensity. So while most of my clients are trying to improve body composition, meaning lose fat and gain muscle, the majority of the time that they work with me is spent at body weight maintenance. That does not mean that they're at maintenance calories. Body weight maintenance and maintenance calories, to me, are 2 different concepts. Your maintenance calories over time should increase.
Yep.
Because if you're training like a motherfucker and you're moving your body through increasing your step count or doing some baseline level of aerobic capacity work, your energy expenditure should perpetually go up because you're training harder, you're accruing muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is metabolically active. So your maintenance calories over time should increase, but your body weight can be stable. So when we tell people, no, you can't lose fat and build muscle at the same time, I say that's bullshit because the research in that area is like 8 to 12 weeks. Yeah, I don't think in 8 to 12 weeks you're going to lose fat and gain muscle. No. I think in 3 years you can lose fat and gain a ton of muscle.
Fuck yeah.
And stay at body weight maintenance. The key is training and physical activity. So I ascribe primarily to a high flux type of approach. So I push training and physical activity to a very high level. I typically, for most people, later in life, it becomes a little bit harder because digestive stress becomes an issue. I will overfeed people on protein. So that 1.2 to 1.4 grams of protein per pound body weight. For clients over 35, I tend to lower that because protein is harder to digest. So they tend to get more like GERD and things like that. But we're getting into the weeds. Overfeed on protein, so it manages your satiety. I prioritize fruits and vegetables, at least 800 grams to 1,000 grams of fruit and vegetables a day. And then I appropriately dose training and I monitor training performance and make sure that it's always trending up. If you do those things, you're going to look like a fucking animal. You're going to look like you lift.
Yeah.
And you don't have to spend any time in a diet.
Yeah, I think
now,
that
depending on your start.
No, I was going to say
I'm
that.
just going to elaborate. Depending on your starting point, you may have to diet initially.
Yes.
But the majority of the time should be spent at body weight maintenance.
Do you have some body fat qualifications that you use to get people started? Like, for example, if I get a new client and let's say it's a female and she's 35% plus, and I'm not going to sit there and have them do a DEXA scan. I can tell you visibly whether somebody's 25 or 35 or 45, whatever. It's not hard after this many years. I'm gonna get body fat off that person as my immediate focus because I want that person not only confidently being able to do what they have to do, but also let's give them a big win right off the bat, in my opinion. Do you have some qualifications that you use as far as why you would or would not do that?
Typically, I will get someone to achieve some level of body composition that they're proud of, and then we essentially try to maintain that. So if I have that client who comes to me at, let's say, whatever percentage of body fat, I hesitate to use percentage of body fat metrics because you'll get people that say, oh, if you're over 15%, you should never focus on building muscle. You should focus on losing fat. I recently did a DEXA scan. I did a DEXA scan about a month ago. A month ago, I had veins in my abs, veins in my pecs, veins everywhere. You look at me, you're like, holy shit. And I did a poll on my Instagram. I said, what's my body fat percentage here?
I remember that. Yeah.
Every single person, aside from a couple of like well-seasoned coaches, guessed that I was sub 10% body fat.
Yeah. You were like 12, weren't you?
I was 12. Yeah. 12.4. I know. Super fat. But this is the kicker, right? It's like, well, if everyone underestimates their body fat percentage, what truly is an ideal body fat percentage? Men will probably start to, like, because of the body fat distributions, men will probably start to see their abs around like 17%.
Yeah.
Most people, that's a really healthy body composition.
Fuck yeah.
So what I typically will do, because I don't like if a client has access to a DEXA, yeah, I'm not going to say no. But for the most part, what I do is I say, hey, can you upload, because we use an app, can you upload to our app a picture of your ideal body composition? And we use that as a guide with their progress pics to say, hey, let's get you there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep you at maintenance and try to increase your calories slightly over time.
Yep.
The thing that I do a little bit differently is I tend not to put timelines on people because I like doing things slow. So if they're losing a half pound a week, I'm totally fine with that, as long as training performance is trending up. Because at that point, even in a deficit, you're probably still building muscle because the training that we're doing is a novel stimulus.
Yep.
So I'm saying all of these fancy words, but it's really not that complicated. If you're training really, really hard, nutrition is easy. But people miss the training piece. People go in and they do their F45 workouts, or they do these like half-ass 4 sets of 10 workouts. If you give everything you have to every rep of every set, and you take all of your sets to a 0 or 1 reps in reserve, meaning you're almost at volitional failure, you don't need much volume to get crazy progress. And as long as that progressive overload takes place week after week in some capacity, you're going to be really, really surprised at the results that you get.
The fatigue monsters are coming for you.
Yeah, seriously.
Where they're showing you that picture of their ideal body composition, and you have to educate them on, you need to gain a lot of muscle to look like this. This is not just a fat loss thing. Because I feel like a lot of people in their head, if I just lose fat, I'm going to look like this. And then they're showing you a picture of somebody who has substantial muscle, but they're just not this maybe huge guy. Do you come across that? Funny
enough, you'd think with the population of clients that I work with, I would get that a lot. I don't.
No,
like I get Henry Cavill a lot.
And are these guys already jacked?
Most of the guys that I coach are like over 200 pounds.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but if I was to have that conversation, right? If
So
I was
not
to
you,
be
Jimmy.
like, hey,
Real men.
I mean, he wishes.
so
He wishes.
any man under 200
All natural.
pounds is a victim. I just say that word out loud.
I'm a victim.
I
I'm
was
a victim.
I was that person.
I never want to be 200 pounds.
Yeah, well.
So
then
okay.
start- then
So
start learn
here's
how
the
to-
deal.
Learn how to
In order
run.
to have that conversation, with the client, you have to be very, very upfront with the expectation. You say, I'm never going to tell someone that they can't achieve a goal. But I will say, based on where you are now, based on this as your ideal body composition, you're looking at a 3 or 4 year plan. And this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to lay it out. For the most part, because they view training and nutrition as a vehicle for personal development, they don't care that it's going to take 3-4 years. They just want to be pushing that rock up a hill. They just want the purpose in their journey. So that conversation, I think, is a tremendously impactful one. If you're going to be realistic with the person and say, hey, you could totally do this, but it's going to take this long, they're going to respect you more for it because you're not making promises you can't deliver on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
you got to get in that picture at the one conference where it was all 200-pound guys, and then I had to take the picture because I wasn't.
That was one of the
Do you
first
remember
conferences.
that? Which conference was that?
Well, that was
One
that
of the
was
first ones.
Yeah, that was when we were like training with like Brad Jensen and stuff, and I remember that.
And it was like, we got to get a 200-pound guy pick.
Yeah, that was coaching con, I think, in Scottsdale.
One of them.
Yeah, I remember that.
One of them.
That was funny.
And I had the opportunity to take the picture because I was like 180, which I like being in that area.
I remember what it was like to be a child too. But no, I think
46 years old.
The long, slow,
lasts a lot longer than you yoked people.
The long, slow approach, I think, is the thing that's missing in most coaching practices, because I think a lot of, and we can obviously speak to this because you obviously have a mentorship for coaches. We're getting to a point in the coaching space where people are really good at selling it and they're really shitty at fulfilling it. Oh my God. And I want you to talk about that aspect from a coach's perspective, right? Because you have clients who comply. I'm sure every once in a while you get the occasional non-compliance. You'll have people out there that'll say, well, non-compliance is your fault as a coach, where I'm going to say, we can lead as many horses to water as we want, and it just comes down to whether they need it or not. So can you talk about that aspect? Because a lot of people that listen to this may not necessarily want a coach, but maybe they want one in the future. So can you talk about that aspect of being able to sell it, but not being able to actually keep people engaged in a coaching program?
So the number one thing that I see all the time on social media is that coach who's always selling. And if I was a potential customer and I saw someone always selling their services, my initial thoughts would be, how many clients does this person actually work with? And why can't they keep their clients? Because if you're always trying to acquire clients, that means your retention rates are probably quite low. Now, as a coach, some key performance indicators or KPIs in your business are obviously going to be the number of clients that you're coaching and your income. You need to keep track of those things. I would look at my customer lifetime value, which is by proxy of how many months they've been working with me at what price point, and then your monthly churn rate. So if you can keep your churn rate as low as possible, meaning how many clients you lose versus gain, and you can keep your lifetime value as high as possible, that means you're working with people for a longer period of time. And if you want to scale a business, the easiest way to scale a business is to never lose clients. The other way to scale a business is to provide phenomenal service that people rave about. Because if you have 5 clients right now, and each one of them absolutely loves you and can't stop talking about you, and they each refer you one person, and then that one person refers you one person, you just tripled your roster and you didn't do any promotions. So when you focus on service and delivering, that will automatically sell your coaching. When you focus on service and delivering, you automatically retain your clients and increase your roster size over time. So to me, it's going at it ass backwards. So the majority of the work that I do with my coaches, like my mentorship coaches, is how do we develop systems and processes that allow you to over deliver on your services so that people love what you do and do your marketing for you? Plain and simple.
Yeah.
That's how I've been able to build my business. And that's how I've been able to scale it to having 5 coaches plus my wife. That's why my wife is capped. That's why I'm capped. Like, we don't need to market our services because our clients do it for us.
And then that way your clients are actually getting the result that they're
Good red
expecting
flag.
from the beginning. I mean, that's
Oh
the
my God.
reality.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
the longer time horizon a person has inside of a good coaching ecosystem, the more potential for results that they see, as opposed to, let me sell you a 12-week package paid in full and then you fuck off after 3 months. Well, I know you haven't built shit from a skill set standpoint. I know you haven't developed any habits. I know you just were super motivated, went through the motions, got your little prize at the end, and then you left. And then you're going to cycle through 20 more coaches because you're going to regain the weight. You're going to lose steam. And this isn't really part of your identity yet.
The like everything that you do as a coach so there's a difference between someone who coaches people and someone who runs a coaching business. Someone who runs a coaching business structures everything from the ground up based on providing service. That has to do with how you market yourself. That has to do with how you talk about your coaching. That has to do with how you price your coaching. That has to do with how you charge your clients. That has to do with what platform you use to communicate with them, what platform you use to administrate your programs. And it also has to do with every little thing that goes on within the check-in process. Even the word you use to name your coaching. If you call your coaching a program, you're setting yourself up for poor retention, because a program is transactional and it's time limited. Yeah. If I call my coaching a service, it's indefinite and it's relationship based, because service is a relationship thing. If I price my coaching in 3-month blocks and I invoice people every time, that means that I have to resell them every 3 months.
Yeah.
If I charge them monthly on a recurring subscription that auto bills them, I never have to talk about money ever again after the first conversation. So all of these things, all of these systems, all of these processes that are involved in building your business will help to build retention, onboarding, communication timelines. Like, all of these things factor into how am I prioritizing the relationship with my client over the fact that they're paying to talk to me.
Yeah, and I think that's a big missing piece. I think especially in the newer coaches that are coming into the space, they're being sold the idea that they obviously can scale rapidly and make a lot of money, which isn't untrue. I've seen it happen countless times, but I can also count on one hand how many of those people are still here that were here 3 years ago. And that's why I host the summit. That's why I go to conferences. That's why I connect myself with people that are much better at what I do than I am. Because there's never going to be a point in time where I don't want to get better at this, and there's not something for me to learn. You know what I mean? Like, even with the amount of experience and knowledge between the three of us in this room, I mean, we don't hold a candle to the Mike T. Nelsons of the world. And by the time we get to Mike's level, Mike's going to be another 15 years ahead of us. And to me, that's no different than the example you used of clients wanting to continue to push that rock up the hill. That's what separates people who succeed from people who don't succeed, is because we don't see this as work. We don't see this as a means to an end. We truly see this as passion and purpose. And if you can't develop passion and purpose behind your nutrition and behind your fitness, it's never going to actually stick. And I think that's what you do an amazing job at.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. Like, that's a really, really big compliment. The, a great metric that like a take home metric that people can track is take your lowest income month and compare it to your highest income month and see what that delta is. Because the closer that delta, the smaller that delta, that means the more consistent your roster is. And then if you're still in the phase of growing your business, which most coaches are going to be, that delta should remain the same as your income climbs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I think also too, and
I
I
mean,
mean, maybe this is,
I talk about money
yeah, that's what I was going to go to
go
with
ahead.
money.
Go ahead.
So there's a lot of conversation in the coaching space about money, right? Monthly income, monthly revenue, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, it's much easier to sell coaching or to be a good coach when you're not constantly stressed the fuck out about what you're making on a monthly basis. I get that. And people will look at somebody like me and be like, well, you've been doing it for 15 years. It's easy for you. I just had arguably one of the worst months of my career. I lost 15 people and I only signed 4 in the month of June.
Oof,
Now,
it
obviously,
happens.
it happens, right? Obviously, I understand the business. I understand what the summertime is. I understand in September, everybody's going to get that fucking itch after seeing all their pictures throughout the summertime. I know that I'm poised because I keep watering my plants constantly. I have 1,000 conversations a week. I post content every single day. I ask for business whenever it's necessary. So my well doesn't run dry because my efforts never run dry. But what I feel bad about is the clientele side of things because they're being susceptible to all of the new messaging that's going on, which is always the overpromise and the underdelivery of everything now, as opposed to this is going to take a long time. This is going to take work on your side, and I can't do any of this for you. So seeing as many coaches as you've had go through your mentorship program, how do we make the client coach relationship fall lockstep together so that this relationship can truly last how long it needs to last for?
Well, I think it comes down to how you sell the coaching in the first place. Because if you're very firm on like who you're trying to talk to and you're getting that specific person to raise their hand, I think that's the first step. So a concept that I was introduced to recently was the idea between a ELF client, an exciting, lucrative, and fun client, versus a hard client. It's like it was like, or no, not hard. ELF and sorry, prep brain. Anyway, you have shit clients and you have good clients. The way that you get better clients is by learning about them deeply and intimately, what their barriers are, what emotions they're feeling, what problems they're facing, and you position yourself as the solution to those problems. Now, if you're speaking to the appropriate person and you sell your coaching for exactly what it is, that means that you're prioritizing the relationship from the beginning, right? So even like I talked about onboarding. So as soon as someone clicks purchase, how long do they have to wait to talk to you? Right? When someone clicks purchase on our website, they're immediately taken to a video of that specific coach that they purchased coaching with, thanking them for purchasing and what to expect. Then as soon as they get that video, there's an email in their inbox inviting them to our app. In that app, there's a video of myself and Olivia welcoming them to Master Athletic Performance and talking about our mission and vision. Then in the following days, every day there's a video or a message from the coach walking them through the onboarding process until their onboarding call where they go through their plan with the coach. So we're engaging people from start to finish. And just in that onboarding process, we're creating that relationship and we're distancing ourselves from that transaction. So when you talk about like putting the relationship has to be center from the moment you even first reach out to the person. And that first reach out is their first exposure to you as an individual. So we want to make that as impactful as possible. Whether or not like the susceptibility piece, like, I mean, you and I went back and forth in comments today, just kind of in jest, but like I've made a really good living off clients who've had no success with other coaches coming to me. And I'm okay with that because I don't have a huge following, but I know that my following is very engaged and interested in purchasing what I'm selling, which is most important. You don't have to have, I don't even have 10,000 followers. And, you know, you talked about money and income. And it's important that you scale your income. It's important that you're not worried about your bills so that you can provide better service. But if you look about it like this, so you only have, let's say you had a pie chart of 100%. You can't go more than 100%. So if 50% of your effort is spent on acquisition, that means only 50% is focused on service. But if I can shift that 50% of service to 90%, that's going to feed into that 10% of promotion and marketing and make it more impactful because I have better service to market. On top of that, when you look at exactly what it is that you're doing with your clients and you're getting those referrals, and I'm like I said, I don't care about talking about money because I think it's important. I've spoken about how I feel about the coaching practice. I've spoken about, how we operate things. I made more money last month in 1 month than I made in a year as a college strength coach. And I did that without sacrificing my values, without sacrificing my service. And I actually only posted 10 times in that month. If that doesn't prove my point, I don't know what does.
And to be clear, just for some of some people are like making that much money for other coaches that might be listening who have a team, you're talking gross income prior to paying, making more in 1 month than a year. Or are you talking even after all of that, what you brought in for yourself?
After expenses, I might have been under $3-4 grand.
Okay.
Because we don't have very many expenses. I pay a video editor for our social media, and I have a VA. That's pretty much all my expenses, and our coaching platform and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's another great point though, because funny story. I met a guy who was making gross 7 figures. His take home was 90 grand.
Yeah. We've been at conferences where they're celebrating the people who are part of their coaching program and they're making 10K a month, 20K a month, and the person's barely bringing anything home.
Yep.
And it's like, it's selling this thing. So every time I hear somebody what they say, I'm like, to be clear, just so you know, or whatever it might be. But yeah, exactly that. There are people making 7 figures and they're not making 6 figures at the end of the day.
Yeah. So
they're spending so much on ads or whatever else it might
be. We don't run ads at all. Yeah. I've actually only boosted one post one time.
Yeah. But this is the perfect analogy for people who have expectations with either gaining muscle or losing fat or anything like that. When you build the foundation the right way,
absolutely,
it becomes much more, you don't have to keep doing these fads over and over again, to try to push business, to try to lose fat, to whatever it might be. You take your time, you do things the right way, you build a foundation, and then it's cruise control in terms of that. It's still all the hard work. It's still not dropping the ball with clients. It's still not, skipping your protein and not pushing the failure. It's still that hard work that needs to be done, but the foundation has been laid. It makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, listen, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and my ass has to go do some cardio. So one piece of advice for coaches, one piece of advice for clients.
My one piece of advice for coaches is to really dial in on what your values are. I think in most cases, coaches come into this with some vague idea of what it is they want to achieve, but they have very little clarity over the values that they hold in achieving that goal. So they end up feeling a lot of friction towards certain tasks that they're being quote unquote required to do. And the reason they feel that friction is because it's compromising on one of the values that they're not aware that they have. Example, I don't really do any funny, entertaining reels unless it's with my wife, because I actually really like that. Because I'm not a funny person. I'm funny in conversation, but I'm not very creative. I'm very cut and dry, very educational. That's what I value. So that's what I do. And when I'm talking about science, and when I'm talking about habits, and when I'm talking about systems, I could talk about that all day. But you ask me to make jokes and play around and dance in an Instagram video, it'll take me 7 days to film that video.
Yeah. If you felt funny, you'd make the video maybe, but you're not going to force it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So being clear on your values and what you hold closest to you, and then every decision that you make should be in alignment with those values. It'll clear up so much friction in your business. With clients, Stop trying to do everything all at once. That is the number one cardinal sin that people make. They try to make massive changes all at once. They might be successful in the short term, but in the long term, very few of them are successful. That's why we have these high recidivism rates when it comes to fat loss. If you can slowly, incrementally build yourself over time, what'll end up happening is you'll get results much faster because you didn't have any back steps. There's no 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's continuous half steps forward. And so that would be my advice.
Perfect. Well, Jimmy, last question.
I like it. Paul, we know that you're a huge fan of the show, but that you've never listened to a single goddamn episode.
I'm a huge fan of the people.
I'll take that.
But we like to ask every guest the same question so we can compare and judge you to all former, at this point, 180-ish people.
Wow. Good for you guys. 180 episodes. That's amazing.
Yeah, this will be like 180. I think 78 just came out. We have 79 and 80. Yeah, 80 or 81. Wow. So, yeah, we'll be hitting 200 soon.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we enjoy. But our final question, are you ready for your judgment day?
I am.
All right. We'll find out if you are. Bye.